Good day. I'm going to present on networking and partnership, code NAP0S2. My name is Michael Mulondo. I'm your tutor. We are going to cover and look at networking and partnership in the world of HIV/AIDS. Then we are also going to look at key steps in building and sustaining networks, AIDS network, and I'm also going to explain what is a network and how does it work. We're going to look at how do you formalize networking and networks as a governing body, and then also looking at the staff or the secretariat of a network. We are looking at how do you mobilize resources as a network, and how do you then develop an action plan. Also looking at evaluation of network and how does a network evaluate itself, looking at its effectiveness, because a network is having or consists of members which are individual and organization. We're going to look at the challenges when it comes to commitments of members, communication within and without the networks, and then also lessons that we can learn from other networks, and which networks can also learn. Now, networking and partnership in the world of work is very important, and for you to understand networking or network is to understand what does the word really mean. Just to dissect or define the word, it involves certain processes or procedure, and it looks at a multitude of people, a multitude of organization, and how this organization or individual come to an agreement, and how they can involve themselves in an action in order to achieve an objective or to achieve an aim. So it's many people, many organizations coming together for a common goal, and then with that common goal they want to achieve an objective. So that's what networking actually means. If I can also explain that it's also looking at the sets of individual, and these individual come together and they say, how can we collaborate? And when they're going to collaborate, they're first going to identify a problem, a social concern, and then they say, as individual or as organization, under this agreement or this network, how can we then address this problem, or how can we achieve this goal? So it's very important for you to know that networking it's a very important aspect when it comes to HIV/AIDS. What is partnership? Partnership is a relationship between two or more people, or a relationship between groups, organizations. And they are also looking at mutual cooperation. And of course, when they look at mutual cooperation, they're also looking at what are their responsibility. And it's about value addition. It's what value will the two partners or the two individuals bring to that relationship, or as entities. So, in partnership or networking is actually looking at the principle of synergy, and synergy actually only says the two become one. So it means oneness in spirit, oneness in beliefs, oneness in achieving the goal. So instead of having two individuals or two organizations working separately, they come together and say, let's form one organization or one synergy or oneness, so that we can address this problem or achieve this action or this goal. So there are certain steps that you have to follow when you want to build any AIDS network, which are very important. There are 8 steps that I can give you. The first step is when two individuals or two organizations come together. The first thing is they need to know, why do they want to work together? What is the purpose of the synergy? What is the purpose of the network? And this purpose needs to be formalized into a statement. And this is where a contract comes in, or an agreement which is then official. So both of them need to know what would be the purpose of this network or this partnership. That's step number one, which is very important. Step number two is, once you have that agreement, or that you know what is your purpose, then you need to define your goals and your objective. What do you want to achieve as a partner? What do you want to achieve as a network? And once you know what you want to achieve, then you need to step back and then come with an action plan. You know this is what you want to achieve. What are we going to do together as a partner or as a network to achieve our plan, our goal? And this is when action plans come in. Once you have your action plan, then it's very important that there needs to be ground rules, because you, as two entities or two organizations, you have to know what is expected from each other. And it's very important also to know that there are certain rules that can govern you and that can guide you so that you can achieve your goal. Decision making. Whenever you are going to make decision, who is going to be involved? What kind of decision can you make? What level of decision making? So these are the first step that you have to make. So who is the executive? Who is the board of directors? And this is mostly where your governing council comes in. Then the sixth step is communication. Communication is one of the challenges of most networks and partnerships. Each network and partnership, they need to have a plan. They need to know how are they going to make sure so that there can be transparency, there can be open communication between the two organizations or two individuals. Then once you have a communication plan, the step number 7 is you need to know how will be the structure of this network or this partnership. Are you going to have a governing body, a council, a board of director? Are you going to have a secretariat? If you are going to have the secretariat, how will your secretariat looks like? Secretariat of the governing council with executive director, supporting officer, operations manager. So it's very important to know how will the structure look like. Then the step 8, which is the last step but not the least, is then the resources, because you need money to make this network or this partnership operational. So you need to have a budget to make sure. So once you have you follow those steps and you have the network, then it's very important to formalize the network, which means you go through the whole process of registering the body itself. You go through your local authority or through the constitution or through government entities to know what kind of status does your governing or does your network or partnership needs to be. Does it need to be a trust? Does it need to be a foundation? Or does it need to be an organization without profit or non-profitable organization? So these are the decisions that you have to make. So, but it's important that your network or your partnership needs to be formalized. So these are the process that you can follow to formalize your network. Number 1 is you need to have a governing body. The issue of governance is very important. Board of directors, managing director, executive, secretariat, very important to have a body. Then organizational structure. As I said earlier, you need to have a structure. And in that structure, you will know who are the line managers, what are the line of communication, what are the decisions, so you need to have a structure with a very clear hierarchy, so that you know, is it executive, is it administrative, is it implementation, or vice versa. Then the third one is you have to distinguish the role. What is the role of the governing body? What is the role of the board of directors? What is the role of the secretariat? Very important. What is expected from the staff that is supporting that are playing a supporting role to the governing body? And then last and not least is you have, as part of the formalizing, you have to look at the members. Are you going to have 2 members in this network? Are you going to have 20 members? Are you going to have 100 members? Who are the members? What are the terms of reference of the members? What are the criteria to become a member of this network? And what will be the responsibility of the network? So it's very important in the whole process of formalizing the network and the partnership. You have to look at these 4 processes, and members are the ones that make up the network or the partnership. And it's very important that the network, the members need to know what is expected from them. So in a network or a partnership, as I said, you need resources. The question is, how are you going to use your resources so that you can have an action or for implementation? There are 2 areas that I want to focus on, which is very important. Is if you are looking at resources for action, you have to make sure that you have enough, adequate and consistent resources, because when you are going to implement any activity, or you're going to have any activity, it's very important to know that when you're going to implement those activities, is you need to have enough resources. You have to have financial resources. You have to have human resources to make sure that the implementation of your activity or your action plan, there will be dimension of sustainability. It will be very sad for the network if you initiate something or you implement it and halfway that you have to stop just because of lack of resources or funding. So it's very important that you have to look at. And funding is very important, as I say, and one of them is you have to look for partners, and this is where you need to have donors or financial partners in donors, whether it's a bank or a funder. And the question is, what do you need to look at when you look for a donor? The first thing is, when you are a network, you have to find out who are the right donor. There are so many donors in there. And the donor that you have to identify, you have to make sure that this donor will support your objective and also your goals. Because it will be a conflict of interest if your donor that comes on board is in disagreement with your goal or the objective of the network. So it's very important to make sure there is that harmony and that synergy when it comes to your donor. So identifying your donor is very important. It's a very important activity and exercise that you have to do, and then you have to target the right ones. So donors needs to be there on board, and then you have to make sure that if you identify a donor and then you have targeted a specific donor, then you have to call them up. Find out who are the donors, what area do they cover, or what programs do they support, for an example. It's very important to get as much information about the donor, because the donor, when the donor comes on board, the donor also becomes a key partner in the network or in the partnership. And once you have identified and you have all the information about the donor, then it's very important then to come up with a proposal. And many donors normally are requesting, or they call for an abstract or call for a proposal. And this is where, once you have information about the donor, you know it's the right donor, you have to make sure that your proposal will then meet the criteria of your donor. So you have to prepare an application for funding and a proposal. Once you have the proposal and you get the money and you've got the funding, the question on the challenge of most networks and partnership is, once they have the money and they've implement the project, is always what then. So I've got the money, what do I know? What is expected from me? And this is where sustainability comes in, because most donors, when they look at resource mobilization, they want to look at the aspect of sustainability. So you have to look at life after funding. What's going to happen after the funding or after the project has been. So once you have the money and you are in operation, it's always good as a network, and because you consist of members, you have to have a tool where you have to evaluate yourself as a network, whether you are effective, whether you deliver effectively, and whether you give the service to your members. Because what makes the network or the partnership viable or effective, it's its members. So you need to have a tool or a way to evaluate yourself. And what evaluation is actually looking at is just to assess yourself, whether what you are doing is making a difference in the life of your members, in the life of the community, and you are looking at the outcome. Because you can have so many activities, but it does not make any impact, it does not have any outcome. And it's very important to look at evaluation. So process evaluation is one of the tool or the method that you can use, where you measure you measure your activity, and you looking at the activities that you have carried out. Was it according to your goals? Was it according to the objective of the network? Was it in line with the guidelines that was set there? Does it meet the expectation of your members? It's very important, and this method helps you as you go along implementing the activity. And then, of course, the outcome, which is at the end of your proposal or the end of your activity. Once you have implemented those activity of the program, is you have to look at the outcome. Did you make any progress? Did you make progress, or did you stagnate? So it's very important to know that once you implement or once you have activity, you have to make programs, and this program must be in line with the activities that are planned. So there are certain steps that you can follow as part of the evaluation process, and these are just guidelines. Some organizations or networks, they are having their own criteria which they follow in the whole evaluation process. So there is these steps that you can follow. It's just a guideline, as I say. The first one is you need to have a plan. You need to have an evaluation plan. How are you going to evaluate the network? And then once you have a plan, then you have to design the tools that you are going to use to evaluate your network. So you have the plan, you have the tools, or the method or the methodology that you're going to evaluate your network. Once you have it, then you need to come up with a program. How are you going to implement this evaluation? Which means the evaluation plan needs to be implemented. How are you going to do it? And it's very important to have a program, and also to have a monitoring and evaluation program or a plan. So once you have it, then you have implement your evaluation program. Then at the end of the project cycle, you have to analyze, looking at what are the results. Did you achieve the objective of the network, or didn't you achieve? So the results are very important as part of the evaluation and as part of the impact assessment. So it's very important. So once you have evaluated and you have the results of your evaluation outcome, then of course you have to come up with a recommendation. Recommendations that will help you for the future, whether you have to change your objective, whether you have to change the way how you operate as a network, and this will help you a lot. So that's why evaluation is very important. So why is evaluation very important for a network? It helps you for your accountability, because you are accountable towards your member. So you have to account. You have to report to your members. It's very important. The other thing is, when you do evaluation, it helps you to learn from past experience. So it promotes learning, and it will also help you to be more effective. It will help you to look where you as a network have achieved your goals, or haven't you achieved your goal? Did you make any difference? So it's learn as you go. It's learn by experience, and this is where evaluation, it's a very good method or a tool. It will also help you to get feedback. After you've done your evaluation, you look at the results, and that will be very good feedback for you to change and to improve you. It will put you in a better position to improve yourself and to make sure that you give quality service to your members and your projects is quality, and that will also attract donors to you once donors see that you have improved. And of course, when it comes to cost effectiveness, you will save money. You will be more cost effective. So instead of wasting the money, you will be more strategic and make sure that the money that you get, you spend it effectively, and then of course you are also efficient. It will also increase your effectiveness, as I've said earlier, and then it will help you to formulate your policy. And policy formulation is very, very important, especially when it comes to network. You need to have a policy which is your guideline, especially when it comes to your governance structure. So as a network and as a partnership, you will also be faced with some challenges, and there are only two challenges which I will highlight, which are one of the most important ones, is the challenge of commitment. You are a network and you're having members. The commitment of your members will always be a challenge. You will have members that are not committed to the goals and aspiration of the network. Challenge of you as a network communicating to your members and your members communicating to you as a network. So it becomes a challenge, and when you have poor commitment from your members, you will have a situation where many members will not attend meetings, especially when you have annual general meetings inviting all your members or your partners. Many of them will miss the meeting because there is no commitment. You will have a situation where people are having negative attitude towards the network. You will have people that are disagreeing because of poor commitment. You will have infighting. You will have some of the members that are very reluctant to avail their resources, whether it's human resources or whether it's financial resources, just because of poor commitment. So it's very important that you, when you want to have an effective network, you have to make sure that your members or your partners are committed to the goals and aspiration of the network. So building and sustaining a network will give a network the following. So when you are having positive commitment and everyone, the members are committed to the network, it will build the network in the following ways. The first one is there will be a shared understanding. Everyone will accept each other. There will be a common goal because of commitment. So it's very important that you have to make sure as a network that you have to strengthen the commitment of your members. You have to promote it. You have to inspire your partners, because once you have that common goal, you will have shared understanding, and then you will make sure that you will achieve your objective as a synergized entity. It will also help you to become effective in your plan. You will develop your plan, you will implement your plan, and once you implement your plan effectively, you will make sure that because of commitment, your members will then own the plan. So commitment also promote ownership, because the whole purpose of networking is that all entity or all individuals, all the different entities, they have to come together and they have to share. So ownership is there, ownership is shared. So commitment needs to be sustained among members, and it's very important that you have to make sure that those commitments are then shared within the organization. The other challenges when it comes to communication is when you have lack of communication, it might bring a lot of challenges. But one of the things is when you are having an effective communication network or strategy, For you to make sure that your communication is effective, you have to frequently make sure that you communicate with your members. There needs to be consistency. And then, of course, how you disseminate your information is very important. How you use electronic communication via email, internet is very important. And then when there is conflict, how do you resolve your conflict? Through communication. So you have to make sure. So there are lessons that we can also learn in networking, which are very important. Is you have to look at certain factors that influence the dynamics of a partnership and the network, because there can be external factors, socio-political factors, environmental factors that might affect your networking. Even internally, there might be infighting that might also influence your network dynamics. So it's very important. The other lesson that one can learn is then the challenges that networks are facing internationally, locally. Why are networks failing? So learn from other networks, and this is lessons that you can also learn. Visions. You have members or partners, two partners that are coming together, but each one is having his own vision. How are you going to agree to disagree, or how are you going to compromise to make sure that two visions become one? So that you can have a common objective, you reach a common objective, and you are one as a synergy. So having different vision and objective can also be a challenge, and this is lessons that you can learn. Conflict, it's how do you deal with conflict within the network? How are you going to make sure when conflict arises, how are you going to resolve this conflict? So it is something that you can learn, and having skills how to deal with conflict and how do you resolve conflict. And then decision making. Who is making the decision when? How are you going to make the decision? And who? So it's very important to make sure what are the process and procedure that you're going to follow when you make decision. And of course, when it comes to money, there needs to be transparency. Money is very important, and as a network, you have to make sure that you follow the procedure. So I'm going to end now, and I will encourage you to read your IOL study manual to get more information, and I hope that you will be ready for your assignments and for the exam.